And announcements. This meeting is being recorded. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Hearing none. This committee still has a vacancy for a Kingston resident. If you or anyone else that you may know may be interested, please reach out to Kingston's Finance Committee. You can reach them by email at fincom@kingstonma.gov. That's fincom@kingstonma.gov. Anyone else have any announcements? All right. Capital improvement plan updates. We asked the question last time about school routes. I reached out to the school committee chairman and watched the school committee meeting last night, and it seems that they are waiting, or not waiting, but they are in the process of applying for a grant that will cover the costs. Something they've been doing from year to year, and there hasn't been much success there, but they're trying again. So that's the status I'm aware of. As we move on to the school presentations, we can talk more about that if somebody has any questions. The only other thing I have is, Keith, we received an ARPA check at the selectmen's meeting the other night. Do you remember how much that was for?
Just over $1 million.
Over $1 million, yeah. And the county commissioner that came out congratulated Kingston on using many of their ARPA funds for capital projects and not operating expenses. So I'd like to thank the town administrator for his good work on that. Anybody have any updates or questions about changes in the capital plan? Keith, do you have anything been altered?
No, sir. I have removed the tree project. So next draft, you'll see that modified.
Lower budget one way or the other.
Was that a tree project at the REIT?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the overhanging tree limbs. All right, then moving on to appointments, and I think we'll start with schools. So, Mr. Materno, you're sitting right here. Would you like to start?
Certainly.
All right, then we're going to discuss. This is Andrew Materno, correct?
Yes.
From the Kingston Intermediate School, the principal over there.
Thank you, Heath.
You're welcome.
So the capital improvement plan that I put forward reviews a few items that go back to 2022, 2023, some repairs and things that have been done and completed, with some costs that are associated with those repairs, also in 23 and 24. Moving forward for the capital planning, improvement planning at KIS. For the year 24-25, I'm looking at requesting replacement of original exterior steel doors due to rusting and weathering, and replacing missing screens on the exterior windows of the building. The dollar amount associated with this $100,000 is a very rough estimate, but waiting on an envelope study, which we've just received, and we're reviewing the study of the building and the exterior and costs associated with repairs like this. So it's a very rough estimate. Going down the list here in 24-25, for capital improvement plans, our bathrooms and upgrading the steel doors and partitions with poly doors and partitions where applicable, and also painting the walls and floors with a fleck type, like a rubbery,
like a polyurethane floor or something durable that will stand up in the bathrooms.
yes, thank you.
And that just goes over the existing tile.
It's painted concrete now.
Okay.
Moving along, a request to evaluate the building for air conditioning needs. And that request is, again, has an estimated value of $30,000 to evaluate the building.
Would that involve an outside engineering firm?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes.
So they would do all the research on, in terms of air conditioning, what the output of those machines would have to be versus the square footage or cubic footage in the building, how well insulated it is, and everything like that.
Yeah, and check the individual classroom unit vents and see if they're already prepped for air conditioning or not.
Okay, good.
The repair of the parking lot, the driveway, asphalt, and playground surfaces at $20,000, which again, just finding out this comes underneath the $25,000 kind of threshold for capital planning.
Just wait a few months. Could be 30,000.
It changes, it fluctuates, okay, all right.
I'm just kidding.
That's also part of the envelope study as well too, like I said, that we are reviewing. The next two items here for the 24-25 school year that are being proposed are finishing the roadway to continue the roadway behind KIS and continue to KES for a continuous bus loop is what I'm calling it. But these are on some original plans of the building that I've been looking at. Going around the north side of KIS, which is, there's a driveway in between KIS and KES. And extending that through the woods, the wooded area, and continuing it around behind KES to assist with some ever-growing log jamming and traffic control. Something that we're looking at.
I'm familiar with that. My son goes to that school. I sat in that line once. Now I park out in that like satellite parking lot, and walk over to get him.
Yeah.
That's how long it took to get through the line.
Yeah, it's tricky, and you know, there's one way in, there's one way out, and that's kind of some conversations I've had with some parents is we have 1,000 students coming into this place, and there's one way in and one way out. So looking at improving that for the students and for the community as well.
But that's not part of the current envelope study.
That was, thank you for bringing that up, Michael Wallace, again, not part of the current envelope study. So that's something that
We just take that off this.
probably just remove, yeah, and put on something that I guess we can move further on down the line. Coming in a low priority here, the last item for 24-25 is about painting halls, closets, and classrooms, and that's looking at all the interior spaces of the buildings that need updating and are in need of some fresh paint and some fresh look. Continuing on, 25 and 26, two items here for this current for this potential year: cleaning the air ducts, coming in about approximately $25,000, and then finishing the outer building with winterizing and remodeling the outer building to maximize storage space. And this is talking about the if you're familiar with the KIS area, there's a kind of a barn or a little garage that is detached from the building itself. But for winterizing that building and putting power into it to utilize or maximize for storage space and the larger equipment that we're using it.
And with that building, is that in condition that it's worth doing that? It's like a shed building, so it's like a barn. Is that in good enough shape that it's worth the investment, or is that something where we could do all this down in a few years? You're like, oh, well, the bottom rotted out, it's time to build a new one.
No, so a lot of that is concrete, walls. There's very little that's in ground contact or close to ground contact, but it is already rotted away. That number, we used a guess on trying to get the carpentry program at Silver Lake to do a lot of the work. A lot of the electrical panels are there, they've been abandoned, so mice have gotten into stuff, so it'd be like, starting from scratch on the electrical side. But it's not in horrible condition, and it has a fairly new roof on.
The air ducts, how often do you do that? It's a cyclone.
I'm not sure.
They've probably never been done.
Okay. That to me seems like a maintenance thing, and it would be done on I would think on a schedule of less than 5 years. So that might be something to talk about with your committee about, having that in the school's operating budget. I don't know what the best practice is for how often the air duct should be cleaned, but we get to be 5 years or more, how much mold or something could have grown in there. I'm not sure if it's a capital project under our scope. Anybody else have any questions?
I want to go back to evaluating, updating air conditioning. That building's not that old. Is section of that building not geared to have air conditioning into it? Do you guys know that? Or?
I don't know, to be honest with you. There are couple areas in the building, including the auditorium, the library, the office, and then there's a tech room that's full of computers. Those are the 4 areas of that entire building that's air conditioned right now. In speaking with custodians, they say that when it was built, that it was built to handle air conditioning and it needs a chiller, but it's all piped, it's all ready for it.
One would think that that was
It was
the
built
wise and
at
prudent thing to
foresight.
do.
Yeah, yeah. And I would think that too, and that's what my custodians tell me. I don't know how to find that out. That's where
That was the
You're gonna-
idea of getting someone in there to evaluate the building and see what's there and check the
Like a
infrastructure.
one of those little remote control cars with a camera and a light, send it up in there.
right in through all the pipes, just kind of go through it.
Maybe, I
Little
don't
James
know.
Bond.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the ongoing you have here, the roof repair.
Ongoing and completed building maintenance upgrades, the roof repair. We are continually patching and repairing the roof, taking whenever it rains, and depending on the wind direction, we get different leaks in the building. So that's kind of an ongoing stuff that we're completing, but again, talking about roof, talking about, the MSBA, looking at redoing the roofs.
Yeah. We went up there, a few of us went up there last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a patch that had a hole in it. So it's probably a hole right in the patch. I saw a patch that was detaching itself, so it flaps about in the breeze and there's a hole in it.
Yeah.
You know, along the metal edge trim, there's anywhere from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, gap with the sealant. Looks like it's been eaten away by the lichens growing up there. You guys have a, plan to maybe do quarterly or annual maintenance, whether it's internally or through a contractor? It seems like the problems are just, you know, it's like the little things add up, not necessarily everything's just going on at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a plan for the roof. But we are patching it as needed.
Well, the big one I think that we're looking at this year was the doors, and I think you mentioned there were the exterior steel doors and screens. You said, right?
Yes.
There is actually one item, I don't know if Andy mentioned it or not earlier, that just recently came up with the light fixtures in the classrooms. The sensors are starting to fail and have blown out all the LED fixtures in the classroom. We were able to get the manufacturer to cover it under warranty, I think twice now, but they won't do it anymore. So that could be over $30,000, depending on how many actual fixtures are in the building.
Mm.
So that's something that would probably be a high priority versus, you know, having something go out and replacing classrooms at a time.
I mean, you know, and for my opinion, for it's worth, we have this capital plan where we're looking at, you know, 5 years out and moving these projects around. You know, when I started, we had a generator in the upcoming year, and I talked to the fire chief about it. I said, I'm gonna move that to next year. It's not going this year, and this year is, I believe, moved back another year. So it's good to have those things on so we can say, hey, look, this year has got a lot of stuff in it, and we've got to sort through it, or you guys are like looking at it and saying, well, it's not as bad as we thought it was, or it's worse, we need to move forward. Just some food for thought, that stuff coming down the pike.
Something to add though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not on this presentation.
Mhm.
That's it. That last item there is the carpet replacement. Carpet replacement has been completed as far as to my understanding. Best of my knowledge.
Now that I was curious about the doors, that's $100,000 estimated. Which, are these just the front doors?
These are any of the exterior doors that were looked at in the envelope study. We've had some of these doors weren't shutting, some of these doors have difficulty opening. They've been kind of worked on throughout time. We've had maintenance people, we've had some, I don't know who we had out in like September, just making them work, but only kind of on a temporary basis. They're all shutting now, they're locking appropriately, but the way that the
Thresholds have buckled, you know,
Yeah, threshold.
concrete's cracked over the years. bottom of the mullions where the two doors come together have rotted away, so they've had to like put L brackets in to hold it in, so it's still a little rickety, but it's secure. But it's at the point where a lot of it need to be.
And the weather stripping, I think, I remember wasn't great.
Yeah.
Because what you've got on the front of the building are 3 pairs of doors into a vestibule or an airlock, and then 3 pairs of doors into the main building.
Yeah.
Correct.
Would all of those be as part of this project? Or just
So
the ones on the exterior
I
side?
think it's just the ones on the exterior ones that
Okay.
have
And
most
then the other ones
issues.
around the building?
Yeah, and I think on the north facing KIS, there was a set of doors there, and
It's a
then
double door.
the cafeteria door had some issues, where the playground area is.
And then there's a couple other sets of doors out back coming off the gym. And then one more off of, so there are 3 more double doors on the south side that are facing the soccer fields.
The pickup is.
Yes.
line,
Yes.
yeah. This envelope study, is that something we could get a digital copy of if we wanted to have a look at it? Or is it just too difficult to?
No, we could send it to you. Yeah.
I'll follow up later on that. Anybody have any questions? Okay, and these doors, they're not gonna have any kind of, but they have like any kind of electronic mechanism for automated opening or shutting or anything like that?
Nothing's automated, but we do have a fob system, locking fob system. So there's electrical work in these doors. And there are 4 doors, one on each compass facing side of the building.
And those are, there's an issue with it, are those, basically manual override, like you can still, in an egress situation, push through, right?
Yes,
If the electronics fail.
yes.
All right. Thank you for the update. If you guys have any questions afterwards, we can send them to Keith, I'm sure we can coordinate it. Or you guys email. What did you say, Keith?
I'd be honored to share that.
But we have open meeting law, so if we start sharing our questions outside of the meeting,
Understand?
make it a little tough. Okay, anything else in KIS? That's it,
Nothing else.
Okay. Then KES is up. Is that Dr. Whipple on the screen over there?
That is, hi, sorry I can't be there in person tonight.
No
Um,
problem.
So ours is a little bit simpler, only because a lot of the projects that we were looking at over the past couple of years is going to be encompassed in part of that building envelope project. But we, just to kind of start off with the doors, we've had significant issues in the 5 years that I've been there. It is 10 doors, those front 4 doors, we don't have the vestibule. The second grade doors, the pre-K doors from the back and the end. It's just constantly calling in the door people to come fix them, rebuild them. It's just constant. A little bit of a safety issue because there's times where they're failing and they could easily be opened or pushed open through the wind if there's a storm. So for instance, in the middle of the night, the alarms could go off because of wind and a door kind of catches it. We also have a lot of leaking that happens through those doors. So recently with the storm that we had, there was a significant amount of water coming in our second grade hallway that fed into the classroom, which then goes into the rugs and the books and the bookshelves. So there's just definitely some work that needs to be done there. And we decided to wait for the envelope study for that. But for me, that's a huge priority for safety is, windows and doors to keep our kids safe. We had the roof project on there, which was completed. We still, again, we had that really large storm. We still had leaks coming in. I don't believe it was part of where the roof was repaired. I think it's the other part of the roof though, which, as we know, we've been talking about this for years at KES. We've applied for the MSBA grant every year. And I know that we're working on that again this year. I
Which
think
part of the roof was repaired?
I believe, and I'll let Mike confirm this, this is a little over my area of expertise. I prefer education over facilities, but I believe it was the flat part of the roof that was being repaired. So any that had the angles was where we're having some issues.
So a lot of the rooftop units from the base of the rooftop unit, the curving down and out a few feet were all redone.
Okay, so like a big patch job.
Yeah, yep.
The lifespan of that roof is pretty expired, right? I mean, it's pretty much
Yeah.
gone by.
You
Like,
you saw the
4
asphalt
years ago?
shingle on
Right, I know.
the gable section.
Yeah, and even like with the MSBA, one aspect from the building envelope project is like a liquid applied renovation to it. That's a, less expensive version, but it'll give you 20 to 25 years.
But that was the
So it's-
restoration, not the demolish and redo.
Right.
But don't they have to take a core issue and make sure that it's sound enough to handle the liquid restoration?
Yep, so we'll probably have to do it again, but we've had a company do like infrared scans to see how wet the insulation is underneath, because it needs to be dry, obviously, to do that. So before we get to that point, I'm sure we'll have to do that again.
Okay. On the FY25, we also have the need for a new chiller that keeps going, and that is for our air conditioning. Surprisingly, KES has air conditioning over at KIS, that is a newer building. But that was the original quote that was proposed through Diamond. So I don't know if that's changed at all, but when I pulled that up, that quote is from December 2022. And then just moving forward, we obviously have some things that we need to do, but we're really hesitant on the building envelope because we know we have issues with screens and windows, some structures and cracks within the building when you do a walkthrough on the outside. You'll see that we do have on there this very large Mahandra piece of equipment that is you need to have a special license for, and we don't feel that it's a huge need. We'd rather a smaller piece of equipment that's more manageable by all of our staff across 2 buildings. So we're looking to trade that in to purchase a newer Kubota that is a little more updated as well.
On the chiller, I worked in a building that had a chiller, not an HVAC unit. And it cooled the building, but it did nothing for the humidity. So the paper would curl up in the printers and jam, and that's how bad it was. Does this chiller have any ability to remove the humidity, or is it just that kind of old fashioned, just providing the coolness?
I'm not 100% positive, but I believe their rooftop units are designed to use heat year round to help alleviate that issue.
Those are conversations we had with HVAC as well, though, regarding the humidity and moisture in the building.
I believe the chiller, Keith, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that was voted to be
those-
spent out with ARPA
Those
money
funds have been appropriated through ARPA, so
for this year.
I had sent the superintendents probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. There was a meeting I attended that the county, Plymouth County has been assisting the majority of communities in Plymouth County with their ARPA funding, and they've got some pretty hard deadlines that are based on federal deadlines for the ARPA expenditure. So this type of stuff, this is almost $900,000. I think it's part of Kingston's share of the Silver Lake upgrades. It needs to get spent sooner rather than later. So that money's there, it's ready to be used. It's just a matter of getting a company in there to do the work.
Okay, you want to talk about the generator?
Oh, yes, sorry, I missed that one. Yes,
Big
our
one.
our generator is a huge issue actually across in general. So we obviously had a huge issue this past year. It seems a really long time ago, but it could have been what, in January? When was that big storm? So our generator, it doesn't power the entire building. So there's certain places, for instance, my office isn't powered by the generator. The generator does not power the entire building or the heating system. So for instance, that day that we had school, we were already in the building. It was a warm day, not a big deal. But let's say let's say it was a really cold day, our building could have gotten really cold at that point, and been an issue. So we really need a generator that can power the heating system as well. And there were issues between KIS and KES regarding them. If they lost their internet and generator, we lost our phones and internet as well. So that's a whole other situation that I don't know if it's a matter of us having a better generator to complete our whole system and be able to run functionally in isolation. I don't know, Mike, if that's an IT thing or a facilities thing.
So from what I understand from IT, everything is based, believe it or not, in KIS. So if they lose power and their generator failed, which it did, then even if KES has their generator operational, they're losing their phones and stuff.
So question, I know in the past, the KIS building has been used as a storm shelter years ago. Is KES ever being used for any kind of sheltering purpose during a storm?
Not that I'm aware of, but our generator doesn't even power the heat, so I don't know how it would be.
Why they weren't using it, but, you know, I'm just thinking about that puts extra pressure on the generator need. You know, you're gonna have people who in town can't be without power or their home's
Yeah.
something with wind or whatever, they're gonna go someplace. And years ago, they went to KIS, they assumed they had functioning generators in the storm. And a masonry building to protect them from the wind, so.
Yeah. I know years ago, one of those large storms, probably 10 years ago, I think they used KES, maybe KIS and Silver Lake, both at the same time.
It seems like if one building goes down, somebody's lost in the other one.
Only if they lose their generator at KIS.
Yeah.
Which did happen, and we were without phones and internet, which just poses a huge safety issue in general with being able to contact families.
Anything else on the KES?
No, I think most of it really is waiting on that building envelope. We didn't have any other major things we've been working on a lot, thanks to support of the town.
Is there, do you know when that might be delivered to the town?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You're waiting on the building envelope study?
That
we have that?
We just got it back. Yep.
So we just got it back this week. We just haven't
I see,
completely
okay.
reviewed it yet.
All right. Anything else for schools? Any
On the new
questions?
steel doors, what will the warranty period be? 10 years, 5 years?
I don't know. I can find out.
I actually had a question too. Mike, you mentioned the light fuses at KIS. Will that be an issue at KES as well, or do we have a different system?
I believe you have a different system and you haven't had any issues with that yet.
Okay.
So it's just the sensors right now at KIS that are failing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I had one question on
Yep.
the MSBA. So make sure it's the grants. If it doesn't go through, I'm on, by the way, I'm sharing it.
I see.
If it doesn't go through, it doesn't cover all of it. Is there a way to write, you know, an article to have the town support the?
Well, I think that the people who would answer that question are the town administrator and the town treasurer. So I guess you're gonna need an article to authorize the pursuit of a bond.
Well, it depends how much we're talking about.
I'm sorry, we're talking about the roof?
Yeah, so again, I think it depends how much the cost of that is and what the most appropriate way is to finance it, if we need to finance it at all.
Okay.
Or do we use, you know, free cash or something along those lines? So I'm not sure, what the timeline is for MSBA. I got the email from the superintendent today, it'll be on the board's agenda next Tuesday. I'm not sure when they make their decisions. It probably would be something that might be more timely dealt with at the fall town meeting. If it needed to be, but, so you have any idea when MSBA decides?
I don't, but I can definitely.
So I'm happy to try to help you out
Okay,
with whatever the process is and to try to deal with what your needs are.
okay.
And, you know, whatever may not-
It sounds like.
Well, I think it's gonna be difficult to bring something in the 11th hour of that size.
Mhm.
In all honesty, but. You know what I'm saying?
That was
Talk about how, what's the best way to deal with this. Try to do it.
awesome. Thank you.
Speaking about the roofs, will we try to have them both done at the same time if the funding comes through?
I believe we only can apply for one
One.
building at a time.
And what building will get that first?
KES, because I was in better condition to do a smaller project and extend that life 20 to 25 years. And they have the most issues with their windows and doors too, so.
My memory from having been on through a few of those on school committee is that target just keeps moving and moving. And moving. That it was, we're at 18 years and their threshold was 20. And as soon as we hit 20, the threshold hit 24. And as soon as we hit 24, the threshold went to 27, which is,
I mean, sooner or later, it needs to be addressed. You just can't push it down the road.
Because then what happens? I mean, there's two ways to kill a building faster than anything. The concrete, the foundation falls apart underneath you where the roof goes. And I don't want to pay for new school. If we can keep this one going. Anything else from the schools? All right, thank you very much. And I'll
Thank you.
follow up about the envelope study.
All right.
And good to see you, Mike Howitt.
you as well. It's been a while.
Hope you're having a good year.
You as well, Gary.
He's committee hopping.
Yeah.
What will he do next?
Have a good night.
Should I stay?
You are not required to, but it's an open public meeting, so you may if you like.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. have a
Good night.
Thanks,
Nice to
guys.
meet you both.
Thank you so much. If you have any questions, just reach out to me.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you.
Andy Matera, by the way, I didn't get to meet you.
I'm Wayne Dooley.
Nice to meet you.
Same here. You'll have a grandson of mine in a couple of years. He's up there at the elementary school right now.
Looking forward to it.
You've got one of my kids in your building, there's two more on the way.
Well, let me know what I need to.
How's it
do
going
better
there? You've been there, what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
No, 1 year?
3 months.
3 months?
Thanks, guys.
Good night.
Yeah. I knew it was 3
Fixing
something.
it, fixing it, pickup line. With the parents who drive up and pick up the kids.
That's gotta be brutal.
They go one way in, one way out. The buses are there and the cars have to go in and come out of the bus. I just started parking the furthest parking spot away. So I've got to pick up kids at 3 different locations there at different times. I walk to one, walk to the other, come back over here and up we go.
People don't believe in walking anymore. That's the problem. They want door-to-door service.
Yes, I make sure I have food and good souls every time I go.
The intermediate school is how old?
He said it was 24.
Man, that doesn't seem possible.
What'd you say?
I said, that doesn't seem possible. That's, I mean, in red, you know, looking back, yeah.
I mean, the roof looks like it's about that old. Exterior of the building looks like it's holding it very well.
I think town people has always supported the elementary school. They'd certainly figure out a way to take care of the roofs,
Yeah,
you know, when push comes to shove.
when we put up the Silver Lake building, wasn't that the most expensive regional school or most expensive school building in the history of the state?
At that time, probably, yes.
I think it made the papers all over the state.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, Newton put in what, $400 million high school,
And
greatest scandal in town.
that's how Duxbury, among other places, has ended up with these co-located middle high schools because people didn't want to keep paying for buildings for 2 and 3 grades at a time.
I would like to say, plan and build more than what you need, because eventually you're gonna find more stuff and more people to put in the building. But now enrollment's actually going down, less kids.
I was just gonna say, we, in Duxbury attempted to do that, got told that's not how this works, and it will still be another 3 to 5 years of declining population before the effects of that gap work themselves out. There's a handful of classes with no door.
Yeah,
They just,
so,
they were supposed to be these kind of open lounge areas and had to put up dividers. It's, yep. And
You used to have divided classrooms in the elementary school. They had like cubbies and cabinets with one room. It's on the, if you go in the front door, take the left and then take the immediate right. The rooms along that right wall, you know, they have the windows towards the courtyard area. They were all subdivided. But it was fine. You have 20, 25 kids, they all fit in that space. It's just sometimes you hear what's going on in the next space.
Harvard built a new, 2 new schools, and they, in 10 years, still, lower elementary and middle elementary school. I have a teaching cabinet, the building I used to be in. I raised it. It's gone.
Did you work in Carver?
I worked in Carver.
Oh.
I taught there for 9 years.
I know you were teaching. What did you teach?
Phys ed and health, the difficult subjects. And then I coached at Plymouth Carver when they were in double sessions.
All right, well, everyone else is out in the hall, so why don't we carry on? Next up is recreation. Do we have Sue Woodworth online? Oh, there she is.
And there I am.
You're a thumbnail to us, Sue, just so you know.
Okay.
A little picture up on the TV. Okay, where would you like to begin? I know we have at least 2 projects for this year.
We just actually have one project for this year. We had put in 2 assessments, but we only put in 1 application.
You have the air cooling, which is ARPA funded, and then the tennis courts, which is CPC. Are you not pursuing that?
No, we are. Actually, I thought you were just talking about CPC. We had originally put in 2 assessments for CPC, and then we only actually did 1 application. So I thought we were talking about the CPC first.
I mean, you know, I think in
way.
the past, some of these committees wouldn't look at something that was ARPA funded, but our bylaws kind of open-ended about the funding source.
Sure.
So we just like to have a look at the projects. And in reviewing the project detail sheet that Keith sent us, I noticed the project seems to have changed from the project we discussed last year when they were looking at a capital appropriation for it. I think last year we were looking at mini splits. Now you're looking at portable ACs.
Correct. And the reason for that is cost. Basically, just the mini splits were much more expensive, much more detailed of what we might need to do to the building. And the portable units just seem to be much more affordable, first of all. And second of all, then they could also be used in other locations in an emergency situation, or so they can be moved to different locations, which is also valuable to the town.
Has anyone ever been in the Reed building on a summer day?
Yes.
I went to pick up my kids
Not
from
on
summer
purpose.
camp and, it's rough inside, whether they've been outside all day or whether they've been inside because it was too hot to be outside and still too hot to be inside too.
Mhm. 1926 building, we love it.
It is a great building, though.
It is a great building. We're really lucky to have that in our community.
I saw the pictures when Andy Davis was posting on All Things Kingston on Facebook. I guess they were taking down like the acoustical tile ceilings and opening up to the original, rafter kind of, in the upper floors. I don't know. I haven't been in, I think, where those pictures were taken, but with all that work, has that done anything to the energy efficiency of the building? I would think in some ways it might lower it, but.
It hasn't, because we actually installed some part of that project. When you do something, there's a certain time frame. I think we have, anytime you remove something like that, you have to make sure that you try to keep it energy efficient. So we have some ceiling fans in there that help to keep the heat down from the cathedral ceiling. And I don't believe we've really seen any major change that I'm aware of. I don't get the electric bills for that building. It goes to the facilities department, but we haven't been informed of any concerns or anything like that.
No, I was thinking that this is more of a cooling issue and the cool air is not gonna occupy the upper spaces as much.
Correct.
Might bring up the electric bill a little bit.
It could.
And you say the bills go to facilities?
Right now, I mean, when the facilities department was created years ago, we had them in our own departments that had their own buildings and things like that had different line items for those. And then when the facilities department was created, all of that shifted over to that facilities department, and we no longer have those line items in our budgets.
Anybody have any questions about the air conditioning systems they're bringing in? These are movable systems. I think they said they're documentation, or I think we're missing a few pages.
They have to be vented outside a window, correct?
I cannot speak
Horrible.
on the particular units myself. I know Rob Cuocos, who is working with me on that, and Keith Hickey on that. So I don't have those specifications right in front of me, but I believe that's how they are done. So that was one of the reasons we decided to go to that unit as opposed to the mini splits and having to cut into the walls and the ceilings of that beautiful old building. This seemed like a much better option for us.
And Wayne, the document says, this email, 3 5-ton units.
Oh, so,
That sounds big.
yeah, that sounds big. It's not.
$43,200 to cool the spaces, it says, plus additional money for the installations. And then we have this page, it looks like it's, I don't know if these are right up here. No, I don't know. It's like customers also viewed, like from the internet. But where's the product isn't actually here. Frequently purchased together. Portable air conditioning units and some flexible hosing. We missed the rest of it.
They have to be vented outside.
Yeah, I imagine that's what the.
That's
Oh,
the whole
before they probably have a window.
Thing.
I have a
like
portable
that.
AC at home and it has something you put in the window sash comes down, holds in
Right.
place. But they're not actually as efficient as the window units.
And it's
Aren't as
certainly not as
efficient.
big as that one.
No. They're gonna have to put those things in the basement. On the concrete they have it there. Okay, any other questions about the AC units? More just advisory oversight? No, okay. All right, what's next, Sue?
So next we have our Community Preservation Committee application, and this year we are requesting some funds as part of our capital plan for the rehabilitation and revitalization of the tennis courts behind the Reed Community Building. So there are 2 courts at that location, and those courts have never had a full rehabilitation, if you will. I've been with the town for 25 years and we have resurfaced them several times. We've relined them. We do maintenance on them with regards to power washing to try to keep the surface as clean as possible throughout the years. But it really is at a point where the cracks are just more severe that we can't really just put a coating on top of it. And we had some damage with some trees that were in the area that had been taken down during a fence project. So that's eliminated some of that, but because of the growth from the trees and the roots in that area, some of the asphalt has come up and cracked as well. So this is a request to do both the courts and excavate and, take care of that areas where necessary.
So I went up and had a look at the course. Did anybody else in the committee have a chance to look?
I did.
You did? How about you, Chris? He's a busy man anyway. He might not have had time. What needs to be excavated? I'm sorry, what, Chris? No, okay. What's the purpose of the excavation?
The purpose of the excavation would be if they get up there and there's, so for example, we had to do the basketball courts down at Grays Beach Park probably about 15 or more years ago now. And we had to fully excavate that court. And basically the reason for the excavation is if we have to do a full excavation of the entire court, when they get up there, they basically dig everything out and put a new whole surface down, and then they would do the material over on top of that. So that would be the purpose for the excavation. They can't just do a surface coating like we've done over the last several years. So they basically have to just redo the entire base of the courts.
Okay, now, having listened to a few conversations about tennis court repair around town, I understand that it's much more expensive than, say, the same square footage of a driveway or something like that. The contractor in the packet look like they're coming out of Vermont, is that correct?
That is at the time of the application, that was the only proposal that I had received at the time. So yes, that's the proposal. Since then, I received another one, which was much higher, from a company out of Connecticut. And those are the only 2 that I've received so far.
Okay, and so I'm guessing that the estimate that you're sending the CPC includes a contingency plus, we're assuming because it's municipal Massachusetts, it's prevailing wages and everything else involved.
Correct.
That accounts for a lot of the cost.
Correct.
If they do excavate, would they put any kind of drainage system just in case that ever became an issue underneath there and caused the asphalt to sink in, or that just not be worth it?
I don't think that's part of the plan for this. I hadn't by the two companies came and took a look at it, neither one of them indicated that they thought that would be necessary.
I thought that part was pretty level. There's only seems to be one area where there's a dip that the water kind of pools. But
Mhm.
now will they have to grind that down to get rid of those cracks and build it back up, or?
Well, they would fully rip out the original court, the court that's there
Okay.
now, and then basically start over from scratch.
And that gets a lot of use, they thought?
It does, yes, it's used by quite a, pickleball is a big thing, so pickleball players use it, players use it, we use it in the summertime quite extensively for the couple of months that we're there for the summertime, so it is a property that's used quite a bit by the community.
Is there a sign up or is there pickleball tournaments there?
We don't actually have pickleball courts there, so some people will just go and mark out the area. It's just a nice surface for them to do it. We do have 4 courts that are lined off a single tennis court down at Grays Beach Park, but it's not officially a pickleball court yet.
They
So
play
no
Saturday
preference.
mornings, so I've been told. Cause I go to I take my kids to the playgrounds at Grace Beach and, the Bailey Playground up behind the Reed Building. And the ball fields, including the one behind the Reed Building. Since 2017, I've seen one use on that court at the Reed Building. One pair playing tennis.
Okay.
I've never seen anyone playing on the one at Grays Beach. However, I have seen people bring their dogs in there. They walk right past the no dog sign and they take a tennis ball launcher, because they got dogs they don't want to run around. It's fenced in. I've even seen a canine police unit from Plymouth come up and use the court for that purpose. But I have heard the pickleball games happen there, and my wife's told me that people do play tennis there all the time. The basketball courts, I see lines of people waiting to get in, both there and there. But I've only seen one match going on, the one up at the Reed. However, somebody who lives on that street who has a friend who walks up from Maple Street or Landing Road might play there every night at 7 o'clock in the summer, and they want to play 100 times or so.
My kids would always go over there to play from Brook Street, drive over,
Yeah.
ride their bike, and they use it a lot.
Okay. So something that came up, I was watching a recording of the January 4th CPC meeting. A few of the committee members are on the call. Nathan Hedberg brought up, seemed to be suggesting that there might be other uses for these funds. This committee obviously is not going to weigh in on what CPC does and how they prioritize. We're just going to look at this as a capital project. There was a little bit of a back and forth about the service life and value of the court. And I think the discussion sort of ended with him saying, well, we'll wait and see what how the capital planning committee weighs in. And I said, well, I guess you got some work to do. I ran a little analysis. I have printouts. Sue, I'm sorry. I thought maybe you'd be in the room with us. But I'll just give a little readout on keep those lead ones. Got other things to do with it.
Forget you were
Now-
behind me.
So, I believe there was an amount suggesting that if the court lasted 10 years, it might be $14,000 to $12,000 per year. I mean, sorry, $10,000 to $12,000 per year. I think is what it was. You suggested that the courts would last 20 to 25 years. That I think they were here since before you came in the position, and they've gone that long without an overhaul. So I would suspect they probably would as well. That's just me guessing. So I did some analysis on increments of 5 years from 10 to 25. I'll read this out. If we were looking at the cost annualized, the cost of the project, it's $146,200. At 10 years, we're spending $14,620. 15-year service life, $9,746. 20 years is just over $7,300. 25 years would be just over $5,800. If we assume there's 5,500 households in town, that's a cost of $26.58 per household to pay for the overhaul. Then I thought, well, why don't we look at it by uses, not sets, games, and matches, but 2 people or more go out to a court. And how many times per year does that happen? Like I said, I've seen one match, but I'm there at certain times when I'm, taking my kids to the playground. So a 0 to 1 at 10 years would be, well, the same thing, 14,620. If somebody used it once every year for 25 years, the cost of the game or the usage is over 5,800. However, that goes down dramatically as we look at the numbers. At 25 uses per year would be $584 per use at a 10-year service life. At a 25-year service life, just jumping ahead, would be just about $234. I'm going to go right ahead to, I don't run these numbers for every year, but I go from 25 to 50, 50 to 100. At 100 uses per year, at a 10-year service life, we're looking at $146 per use, and at a 25-year, $58.48 per use. And then I don't know if they can fit 200 uses per year in there. I don't know if that would work, but I went to that number. At a 10-year service life, that's $73.10 per use, and at a 25-year overtime, it's $29.24. Anyone's welcome to check my math. I can kind of rush this together. That doesn't take into account any other maintenance that would be done along the way. And I also just noted on the document that we have the 2 courts there. We have one at Grays Beach, but that's slated in FY 26 for $50,000 renovation to a multi-purpose court. So I'm guessing that would more accommodate both tennis as well as pickleball. We can talk about that if we want to. And then we have 5 courts at the high school. At least that's what I counted from the satellite image. But those are only available when they're not to the public, when they're not in use at schools. So looking at sort of financially versus alternatives, that's what I came up with. I also looked at Kingsbury Club, and they do seem to have a lot of scheduled tennis events. They have 101 lessons. It's all very expensive. So there's, I assume more people are going to a private club to play tennis. I haven't really seen it at the one there. Like I said, I have seen one game being played. But I'm there when I want to go to a playground that offers a little shade in the summer with my kids so I can sit out in the sun. So somebody going there later in the evening, might get a lot of activity that I don't know. But that's why I did a range of uses. And I don't know if anybody else has any analysis that would suggest what the cost or value of it would be. I feel like that's what we were asked to do, having watched the meeting.
200, I don't live over there particularly anymore, and I don't have a great range of numbers for what that uses. It's particularly the 2 courts, that seems 200 use a year, if that's what we're at, seems really low. Because that would be something like a match a day per court for 3 months.
That's what I'm saying. Like, the only way that's going to happen is someone who walks in or drives in at a routine time, not when I'm there, but obviously Sue's saying it gets a lot of usage. They have to be there every day if you're just talking about, one group of people who are playing through the peak season. But, someone might play before they go to work. Someone might come in the middle afternoon if they really like the heat in summer. I think it's going to probably be more evening. I've only played tennis once. I was on an outdoor court during the evening after work with coworkers, and that's probably going to be the last time I do it because I was fearing dying of a face plant to asphalt.
Yeah, I again, I don't have any kind of better access to data, but 200 would strike me as really low.
I mean, have you ever been to Opachinski during the summer and early fall? I've been there because now some kids are playing on the ball fields and the basketball courts. They're there. They've got their music. There's people around the fence, which you can only assume is a line to get in there and use the waiting to use the courts, not just there to watch.
There's always
I just don't see that comparatively happening on the tennis side. So if I'm looking at this from a capital perspective, I'm concerned about the cost versus the usage. And we don't have an accurate, it's not a counter on the game.
That's so, you're making assumptions with just saying I'm down there once a week at this specific time, and there's nobody there. I don't know how.
Well, no, that's why I said, I told you in all these years, I've seen one person use it. But I'm saying, what if you're using it 200 times per year? I don't know that if they were using it 300 times per year, I think, more people would see it. What I'm saying is, I think the court's more durable than the 10 years that was offered during the CPC meeting. And if you had 200 uses per year, the cost goes down considerably the longer it lasts. Assuming that it's an average and it remains steady. It's hard for me because I don't know anybody who plays tennis anymore. I know golfers, I know boaters, hunters, fishermen, people who play basketball. I mean, we have all those outdoor courts, and then they go into the schools at night, and use those courts too, and in the early morning.
And can I just add too, I know with regard to tennis, they are tennis courts, but we would line these as well, similar to what we did down at Grace Beach Park with pickleball court opportunities as well. So it will actually add more value to it, to the property and to the project. So right now we offer, I believe, 5 different pickleball groups that play, and it's very limited to what they can play down at Grace Beach Park. So it would provide another opportunity for another sport outside of just tennis down there. And again, as I mentioned, we use it in the summertime quite extensively. So we have over several hundred children that are there in the summertime as well, participating in activities and events. And we do use those courts as well, not specifically for tennis, but we use them as we do use them for tennis, but also for other programs as well. And we have run tennis lessons in the past up there. So there are other uses for them outside the general public just coming in and playing tennis at different times as well.
Oh, does the renovation include drawing the lines or making it dimensionally such that pickleball and tennis can operate on the same 2 courts?
Correct, yeah, so it would be similar to what we did at Grays Beach. So at Grays Beach, and on that 1 court, we made 4 courts, pickleball courts that they can utilize down there. So we would do something similar. We had to kind of crowd them in because we didn't have an opportunity anywhere else at that time. So we would definitely be able to add at least 2 to 4 lined court areas for pickleball players as well.
And those games are happening, those are organized by the recreation department, and not just sort of popping up organically?
They do. So there's definitely like you said, kind of pickup games. There's people that have their own net systems. They're not really expensive, so they'll bring them down, and then if they're open, they'll play. We see a lot of people doing that, but we do have, I think right now we have 4 different groups that go down there and play anywhere from, mid-April to actually some of them were playing there a couple weeks ago. So they're utilized quite a bit for pickleball right now as well.
I've never seen a pickleball. I keep hearing about it.
Oh, go down to Grace Beach at the end of April, you'll see them. They're there every single day.
When I visited those courts, there appeared to be some type of red netting in a corner. Is that what they use for pickleball, the red netting, or those hockey?
No, those are those are for soccer. We had a little soccer program, so there are mini soccer nets.
Okay, that'd be interesting. Street hockey.
So, yeah, that would be great.
I'm down for that.
That's what we're thinking of for 2026 for Grace Beach for a multi-purpose court.
You'd have to have removable poles, though.
Correct.
You're gonna have to have supervision. It's gonna get dicey down there. All right, well, is there any other questions about the tennis court and the construction of it and everything else? The committee? Chris, how about you?
No questions here.
Okay, we have 2 members of CBC. Do you have any capital related questions regarding this project? I can't answer how to prioritize this for your committee, but I heard the call and I answered.
Yeah. Thank you, Heath, for the invitation. And I appreciate this document, and I appreciate all the work everybody's doing here. I think it's a tough question to answer because the location of the courts seem pretty good. They're close to what I would call the downtown of Kingston. They're accessible, and they're close to the recreation area, the Reed building. But yeah, looking at this cost analysis, I don't know, to me, it does seem very expensive to maintain over time. You're talking about
that's not unique though to Kingston. That's what I've been learning over the years. Tennis courts are unbelievably more expensive than any other kind of pavement related projects.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call it a bad expenditure. It's just a decision. Whether the money should be spent on this or something else. And seeing, you know, the upper sort of concept of usage, 200 uses per year at $30 each. I'd be surprised if someone was interested in spending $30 a day to use the tennis court. And that's sort of where my head is at.
I'm gonna send the document to Susan Woodworth. She has the ability to email, call, attend another meeting of ours if she wants to dispute the numbers. If she says, I have reason to believe we're getting 500 uses there per year or whatever it is. I just thought 200 for me was the upper limit of what would fit in there. Mike seems to think that would even be low.
Yeah, if you put together a tennis season that starts, say, May 1st to the end of September, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you're gonna say 150 days. That means, I mean, that's 2/3 of a match a day per court. It's just, again, spitballing seems really low.
That's all we're doing here.
Yeah, so
The only number we have is the estimate for what they think they're gonna pay. Then you think, okay, well, I can only work off that number. I can only,
Right.
I can estimate how long it'll last, but I'm guessing that based on how long the prior one has lasted.
Right.
And the uses, I have no data to support that. I can only synthesize it from hypotheticals.
Yeah, I would very much like to see if we had any possibility of getting some real data, because obviously once you.
I can get real data on, not on those particular courts, only because we don't currently schedule a court use other than the summer program. I don't know who, like you said, I don't know who's up there all the time. I can get data from Grays Beach Park because of our programming that we have there, so I can pull data at least from a facility that's a similar like facility, but that only has one court. So we could pull that data and either double it since we have 2 courts at the other location, and have it be comparable. Because again, at least with the pickleball, we don't, same thing for the general public or down there, the people that play tennis, we don't have that. I don't have that information, but I have at least some data that of use in another capacity outside of tennis. But again, we can use these tennis courts for pickleball as well. So at least it would be something that I can provide to you if that's helpful.
Awesome.
Any other questions about the tennis courts?
I like that. I think any activity that we can encourage the youngsters in the town to do is enormous, and money well spent. If you go skiing today, you go to a weekend ski lift at Sunday River, it's $150. If you buy it online, it's $120. So it's expensive to do things. And I really think we owe it to, I know my kids, my 4 children, all played there growing up. My youngest is now 34, so I mean, but he played there a lot. It's just, and I used to play. I'm 72. I'm not start putting my foot on a tennis court other than walk around at this age. But I think there'd be money well spent. I'd really go to the beach.
They have a tennis court down there too.
In the water.
Maybe we can get a water polo set,
God.
water volleyballers.
Now, Keith, a
Hey,
more
were you wanting to
general
speak?
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a more general question. So right now the request is coming to the Community Preservation Committee to fund this project. How would the maintenance or I guess future maintenance and rehabilitation potentially get rolled into the general operating budget rather than being seen as like a special expense that the CPC would handle?
Sure. So the general maintenance actually is already taken care of through that. So that's what we've been doing for the last 25 years. So it has been maintained, just general maintenance out of the operating budget part of the facilities department now, because it shifted. We used to have our own property repairs and maintenance line item, and then when facilities was created, they took over some of those things. So it's already part incorporated or rolled in, if you will, Nathan, to the general operating budget at this point. And I don't anticipate anything. Actually, it would probably be less. It could be less because right now the things that we would incorporate into this, we wouldn't need to do some of those other minor repairs that we've been doing. It's a pretty low maintenance ongoing. It's just when it comes to the end of its life, like anything else, then there's that cost. So on a regular basis, it's not a heavy lifting or a high cost maintenance piece of property.
Yeah, I guess I was asking more specifically about the sort of 25-year cycle, like the rebuilding of it. For example, earlier in the meeting, they were talking about the school roofs that also have a 25-year lifespan. But those requests go through the operating budget as opposed to something like CPC funding.
Those aren't eligible for CPC funding.
Sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Those weren't those are not, those projects aren't eligible for CPC funding. This project is.
Right. And I would also like to say, Nathan, too, one of the things with CPC is prior to CPC actually even being created, one of the things that I had to do was the same thing. It was everything went through capital planning. So now with CPC, it just provides another opportunity, another funding source so that not everything has to go through capital planning, and you have create that opportunity to kind of spread that around. Whereas before, everything that we tried to do had to go through capital planning, and it was also given in with everybody else's capital planning needs. And so really with CPC, it just provided that opportunity to kind of divide that and spread that out a little bit. And so I'll request everything through community preservation as opposed to capital planning, a lot of our projects, because they're applicable to CPC funds at this particular point in time. And capital plan is stretched thin with a lot of the other needs from the community and other departments that need those resources.
Our role here in this is advisory, Nathan. What we're doing is looking at it as a piece of capital. And at least from my perspective, I'm voting on it as if it was a capital appropriation, not a CPC funded project. So if there was an issue with the project, the selectmen, the finance committee, the town meeting, and the CPC committee or community preservation committee would have our advice. I mean, sometimes we don't always maybe vote our recommendations at a time that I don't know when you guys vote yours, but at least in this instance, we're having a discussion together a little bit here. But our vote is just advisory. Decision to fund this with CPC is squarely on you guys.
Right. Yep. Okay. I see. So the CPA, CPC funds are just seen as another avenue to yes, I guess to fund.
So basically, it's a set aside. I think it's an X percent. What's it, 1 or 2% of the revenue to the town? 2%.
Right.
Brian indicates goes to a fund, and then I'm not going to tell you guys how you do what you do, but it seems like you decide how to divvy that up between projects that meet the criteria of CPC. And I guess you can act on those, or you can hold the funds for another year. However you do it, that's up to you guys. We're not involved.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of money that has to go into each particular category. So,
Yeah.
and so
They're
recreation
rated, right?
has
By percentage?
recreation has a certain amount of money and that they can pull from. And then there's more funds beyond that they can compete for as well.
Yeah, so our recommendation, your vote might be, do we want to put this in the recreation budget or the recreation bucket this year, or save it to another year or another year? And ours is just, is it a good project? Are they doing it right? Are they checking the boxes? Is the cost right for what it is? And then our personal opinions and the CPC thing doesn't really come into play for us. But it's one of those projects where we're both looking at. So I heard you say, let's wait till capital planning weighs in. So we've had our initial discussion, and I think we plan to vote these on March the 14th, if our schedule goes well.
All right. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
No problem. Anything else?
Good night.
All right.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate all the information.
Thank you. Sue, is there anything else recreation wise that you wanted to speak to at this time?
Not at this time. No, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I will send you a copy of this document that I have in the room. Sorry,
Okay.
I thought you'd be here with us, so I didn't email a digital copy. And if you have any scrutiny of it whatsoever, send it back and we'll review.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you as well. Bye-bye.
Okay, next item on the agenda were the meeting minutes. Last time we punted them ahead till this time. I have the printed copies if you guys would like to look at them. However, they are a little extensive, and the ones that I worked on before are a little extensive. I think even Chris has had a little bit of time getting around to reviewing them. Hasn't had much time, I should say. So I wanted to say, do you guys want, or ask, do you guys want to go through these tonight and move to approve or edit, or would you rather that we just schedule a separate meeting for committee housekeeping and go through some sets of minutes all at that time? Chris and I sort of, we can operate that way, but you know, it's a lot of meetings for people who have other meetings to go to. And I think if we're gonna do that, I would say we can let the ex officios off the hook for that night. And as long as we get the recording started, we know how to shut it off when we're done.
I am happy to go either way. I would prefer if we could to draw tonight to a close as quickly.
Okay. Would you agree as well?
Whatever works for you, that's fine.
I'll put a meeting, I'll ask you guys when you have availability and we'll probably go through 3 or 4 sets by the time we get there. I just don't want them to go too long because, or at least Chris and I have to get them written and formatted because you can't let them go forever. It just becomes too much work all at once. Okay, so Chris, we're postponing the minutes again. Okay, our future
There you
meeting.
go. Sounds good to me.
Our next meeting is Wednesday, the 28th. We'll be looking at wastewater, water, street trees and parks, and some updates from planning. Following meeting is March 14th. The Thursday meeting will be probably voting through our warrant article and anything else we're looking at that we would vote on. Although we'll probably have another meeting somewhere along the line for these minutes. I'd like to get that to the website, but well before town meeting.
The only thing I would say as we do that is I am fairly certain that each of the other Wednesdays is gonna be FinCom. So we can either move that to a Thursday or a little bit earlier if
That's fine.
that'd be helpful.
All right, so does anyone have any other questions or concerns about future meetings?
Capital plan adjourned.
Oh, hold on, we have member questions, concerns, and comments.
So I thought that was.
It kind of overlaps. You're correct. All right, hearing none.
Move capital planning committee adjourned. It's February 7th, 2024 meeting at 7:11 PM.
And I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Wayne, I.
Michael, I.
Keith, aye.
Chris, I.
All right, meeting is adjourned.